Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to welcome you here to the New Art Exchange today. Thank you for braving the weather, and it's really good to see so many familiar faces and some new people as well. People who have been with us through our journey through Wonderland. And this afternoon we are going to talk about the project, reflect on some of the different activities we've been doing over the last 12 months, and have a discussion around art and creativity and the importance of those things to the city of Nottingham. I'm sure everyone knows Rhiannon, who has been a very, very important part of bringing this project together. And this afternoon we would also like to welcome Paul Tweddle from Crafty Sparrow, who has been a really great supporter of Wonderland by hosting the light night activities at his shop in Friar Lane. We've got Jay Shah of Cappuccino, who is a recent figure on the creative scene in Nottingham, but in the short time that she has opened her cafe Cappuccino on Carrington Street, she has done a great deal to support the creatives in Nottingham through having art exhibitions, writers, readings, political meetings and so on, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing her contribution to our discussion this afternoon. We've also got Pat Thomas on the table over there in the lovely orange, who has been working with us with her group at the Meadows. We've been working by helping to put an exhibition together at Bromley House. We've also got Gavin, who's been working with young children around the city, and I'm sure he'll tell us much more about his project. We've got Bo from Backlit, welcome, and Carol, who is a senior lecturer at Nottingham College University. She was also on the board for Wonderland, so she's been very supportive and very helpful in our endeavours. And of course we can't forget Louis and Diana, who have also been a very important part of Wonderland. And I'm sure Rhiannon is going to bring all these voices together, and we'll have a very interesting discussion on everything that we've been doing over the last 12 months, 16 months. Yeah. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Rhiannon.
Thanks for coming upstairs. I hope you enjoyed the music. I really did, and I'm definitely going to be following him on Twitter now. Carol, stop laughing. Today is, Sarah and I were talking about, well, what is today's conversation about? How do we kind of try to, in an hour, talk about what a 16-month project has done, where the majority of the activities that have taken place haven't really taken place inside a gallery space or a venue like this. It's actually more happened in alternative spaces and locations in the city. And so some of the things we decided that were important to talk about today were, well, what do we mean by public engaged art projects? What actually is Wonderland? What has it done? Where has it failed? Where has it succeeded? What do we mean by engagement? We've got artists in the room, we've got directors of programming and of venues, we've got representation, Kathy from the Creative Quarter, we've got a wealth of knowledge in this room, and I'm sure, as I've met most of you many a times and know you personally and professionally, you all have strong opinions on Nottingham as a city and what it's doing in terms of art, and also hopefully you'll be happy to share some personal views on what it does for you as an individual, your family, how you engage in the arts. So as a starting point, you can't really see, but I've got a collection here of flip chart papers, which are comments from other debates that we've hosted here, where there's been a wide variety of topics that we've discussed, from the riots to older persons, isolation, technology, children, what else have we got down here? education, how do institutions like the university, how are they working with venues like this? So there's a massive amount of things for us to talk about. So if anything, an hour's not enough, but we can do it. So I wondered whether, briefly, Gavin, I'm going to pick on you. Can you please just tell us a little bit about Saturday Art Club and also about your role as Ambassador for Public Art?
Yeah, sure. Hello, my name is Gavin. I'm an artist, that's what I like to call myself. And I also manage the Saturday Art Club at Nottingham Trent University. The Saturday Art Club is actually a programme of art and design activities over a 30-week period during term time. And every weekend I have it's around 20 pupils come in on a Saturday morning to do free art and design activities. We get to use the university at the weekend, which is such an important thing, because ordinarily it would just be kind of just an empty building at the weekend. And I also bring in other artists in the cities to help run workshops, and I'm there sort of every week as a sort of continuing sort of theme, I guess. And then we also have a second year, which were last year's kids who come back and they do activities on a monthly basis on an afternoon. And then we kind of have a third year, which is more like a mentoring programme for the kids who've been here 3 years, which supports them in decisions for applying for college and university and those sorts of things. So that's what the Saturday Art Club is. I'm also an Ambassador for Public Engagement at the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement, or some kind of, and that's based in Bristol. And what that is, it's a network of academics, artists, people that work in universities, a lot of PhD students up and down the country, and their role as an ambassador is to run some workshops with academics to try and encourage them to get their research into the wider world through public engagement. So I've run a couple of workshops now as part of the university, working with students and MA students as well, actually getting them to understand what public engagement is, which is something that might lead us to the question.
So what does it mean to you? What is
Okay. Well, I think public engagement is a way to provide access to a world that people wouldn't normally get access to. So whether that be I can give you an example. In Bristol, they do this thing where academics are thrown into a shopping centre with a poster, and members of the public can come up to them and ask them about what their research is, and they have to answer in a way which is accessible and explain their research to them. So I think public engagement is about providing a doorway or a pathway or an event so that people have access to a world which would normally be seen perhaps to be in an ivory tower or away from the real world in some sort of way. And that spans across to the arts as well, this access thing.
Yeah, so, Louis, can I ask you then, talking about engaging, do you remember in February when we did Light Night, can you tell me, what do you remember about that evening? What did we do?
We made lanterns
Did you help me?
Yeah.
And what did you do to help me? You talked to the other children, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Louis was fantastic because he was able to talk to the children that came to Light Night in a way that perhaps Sarah, myself and Diane Verity weren't able to. So talking about the way you can engage with the public, it's not always the institution or the gallery that's the best voice to do that. I think that that it's about finding the right people to do that engagement as well. And Louis was that man. I'll come back to you later. So Carol, as somebody who sits in what, Gav? Not me, I didn't say it, an ivory tower. And then we have activities where we're able to use your beautiful hairdressers and we had 250 people came in that evening when we added it up, which was an incredible number. And how, you know, if we look at, I know the weather's played a massive part, but you look at the contrast, there's something about accessibility of location and also the funders, where they are located and the presence that they have on externally facing events. What do you think?
Right, okay. Firstly, I wanted to say that I'm a huge supporter of the Wonderland project because from my perspective as an academic, for many years I've been involved in bringing an increasing international population together to work together, so to work in collaboration. And that's been terrifically important. And this is where, in fact, I came across Rhiannon as a student and then later as a PhD student. But I think for me, rather than talk about funding, I wanted to say something about the reasons why I believe that this kind of project is crucially important to us all. And that's to do with the way that our world is changing very rapidly through an amazingly fast rate of speed in which we can communicate. At the same time, we're driving people into boxes. We're driving markets into categories. We're driving nations into states. We are staying at home more because we do not need to get out. So it seems to me we live in a hugely paradoxical time, a time of great opportunity for people to get together, but a time in which most of our spaces are physically shrinking around us. Children don't go out to play as much as they used to. Families, we are told, do not engage as much as they used to. The attraction of moving image technology is such that we are not adjusting ourselves to intelligent ways of dealing with those particular potential problems. And so, to my mind, the notion of a project which deliberately tries to engage people in creative collaboration through discussion, through consideration of the cultural issues that we all share across a huge variety of different people and classes and cultures, is absolutely essential, and it's a much bigger and broader political agenda than we quite often think. I found a little bit of a quote here, but which I thought was very appropriate, which I wrote down before coming, which goes like this: we live in a world where we're coming together in an unprecedented way through communications and visual culture, etc., etc. But in the West, we've become more fragmented. We talk about thinking outside the box, but we can only find validity as people inside boxes. You are this or you're that, you're class A, B, C, C1, C2, D, etc. Or on a really mundane level, every fundamental service, for example our gas and electricity, transport, water supply, etc., offers up a range of separate departments for each need. So we are watching all of the things that were at our fingertips fragment into greater and more distinct services. This is, of course, an inevitable result of capitalism and consumer culture, but it doesn't mean to say it's the best way for us to support communities. And so, sorry, I interjected into the quote there. So we're offered up a range of separate departments for each need, but as a consumer, you may quickly find that there's no meaningful connective tissue between anything. And I think that, for me, is the importance of this project. And that, if we have to get funding bodies to support it, that's partly the argument that has to be made. It's bigger and it's much more significant than and it makes what we're doing on a local level very important.
Connective tissues. So, how do we do that? How do we make sure that we demonstrate that we do have that ability and that need? Do you mind if I come to you now and say, so can you just give me a sense of what the event was like from your perspective and how you feel about being in the city now and what you've encountered?
Well, I moved here about 3 years ago, not knowing anybody, and then I met Sarah, and it was just I never intended to get involved in art or the art society or anything, but I had a huge space, and my oldest friend, he struggles as an artist in London, and they all said, well, you know, if you want to do something in the shop, and then it sort of went from there. I really like Nottingham, and I think that it is, from the art perspective, it is really, well, I'm really supportive of it. The event itself was unbelievable. I mean, 250 people, and that was within a 2.5 hour period. And of course you got at least 15-20 minutes to make the lanterns and everything, so it was just incredible. And it did make me think, well, maybe there should be more, particularly for Light Night, for children to do, because it was more, I think I was the only one that did an indoor event, but it was fantastic, and it gave me a real sense of what Nottingham was about, and you know, the amount of people that came in, on mums and dads and what have you, it was great. From a personal level, it was good just to interact with people that, you know, I didn't know, and from that I've actually made friends, colleagues, people I've never met before, and you know, I want to carry on with my business to support artists within Nottingham. I have got good space. And I think that it should be done more. You know, I know that in Sherwood, where I live, they do Sherwood Art Week, and businesses all put art and sculpture, paintings and what have you into businesses. I think there's more people, if they were approached, would definitely get more involved. You know, it's not done from my perspective to try and benefit anything other than being, as a business, people are more aware of me now, where I am, because of what we've done, and you know, I'd like to carry that on.
Jay, you're nodding in agreement with that. I'd just like to say it's an absolute pleasure to be here today, and it's all thanks to Syra, and like my good friend here, Paul, I came across Syra through internet working, I believe. I'm trying to think, it was only a few months ago, but it feels like a lifetime. So this young lady here does change hearts and minds, there's no doubt about that, so thank you, Syra. As Syra introduced, I am the founder behind Cappuccino, and I have to echo what Paul has just said. We are facing the most challenging economic era the world has ever seen. And I know Carol mentioned funding. For me, as both a business entrepreneur, but also as an educationalist, the way forward is working in kind. It's working with establishments, whether they be entrepreneurial business to business, or whether they be organisations. And the red thread to that building of community cohesion, to that building bridges, has got to be a multi-language, such as art, music and sport. I've led community cohesion projects in a previous life, and my personal ambition was to, when I returned to Nottingham after some years away, was to create an establishment that, yes, was at the forefront of business and would actually build the bridge between organisations, academics and the general public in a way that would suit and benefit all communities. Cappuccino was built with one mission, and that was to regenerate Nottingham financially and in kind. And uniquely, the establishment has been built on that in-kind approach. Syra and colleagues around this room today that have been to Cappuccino will see that we have extended our arms to initiatives, both private, social and voluntary, third sector, to come and to use the space that we've created, because we believe it's the only way forward. I'm immensely proud to be a citizen of Nottingham, and that's what I am. For first and foremost, I think we've got so much to offer. There are great accolades out there that our city, I understand, are aspiring towards. There's the International City of Literature. When Syra and I spoke, we talked about the City of Culture. And there's a real drive for us to go forward with that ambition. And I think the way forward is to work hand in hand with businesses such as Paul, such as mine, and hopefully others that we will bring on board, and that through this initiative we can bring on board. I think the only other thing that I want to say is that art is a red thread. In every culture, in every in every background, art is celebrated in various forms, and particularly where there's struggle, where there's strife, art, music, sport is what gets us through those day-to-day challenges, wherever we are, whichever part of the globe that we're based in. And for those people whose hearts and minds may be in another place in the world, it can always be reflected and be articulated in that form. We're opposite the train station, and we have an array of clientele come through our door. The diversity is rich, it's encouraging, and I think what we're trying to do and what we're beginning to do through Cyrus' work and other fantastic artists is actually start celebrating what we are made of. Our very first exhibition comprised of 10 photographers, amateur photographers who had very little confidence, I might add, in what their work was all about. But they've come in and they've raised the profile. At the moment we're supporting an artist who has been watercolouring since the 70s, and somebody said to him, why don't you go across to Cappuccino and have your work displayed. He came across not expecting at all that we'd say, well, of course we'll give it a shot. We gave it a shot, and you know what, his confidence has risen, but so has the aspiration within Nottingham. We're proud to be part of that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really made me think there's no one else I can go to in this room now. She knows I'm coming for her, other than Pat. Pat, can you please say a little bit about how we met and what your experience of Wonderland has been and the project that we did within that for you guys?
Thank you. My name is Pat, and I run a community art gallery not very far away from you in the Meadows. And I do obviously run lots of exhibitions, and we've been going 2.5 years. At the moment, we've got work by about 14 different contributors. They're not all artists, they're a variety of things. And I suppose really we were delighted to welcome Wonderland. Most of the people who come to me are either retired, very few people work, lots of people who are marginalised on the edge. So Wonderland came, and it was wonderful. So they came and helped with our tea, cakes and memories afternoon. Great thing, I have to tell you. We had people who used to live in the Meadows, as well as present Meadows residents, consulting on what we were going to do with the 45 ancient lime trees that were cut down by the tram construction. And so we've turned them into story poles, which tell the story of the people of the Meadows. But that was the first introduction, and we had a wonderful desert island discs. It was fantastic. We did so much laughing. You cannot imagine. On the one hand you've got Ness and Dorme, and then a few minutes later you're singing dream, 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 and dancing about. It was absolutely amazing. So we've had lots of fun. We're very grateful. You see, one of the things I think, it's about enriching people's lives. Some people who come to me have nothing. They're isolated, no job, no money, no family, and they come and they can have fun, and that makes it life worth living. So thank you very much, Wonderland.
It was great fun, and we were able to, through the support of Nottingham City Council, myself and another artist, Becky Matter, came and delivered these workshops, and it was as enriching for us as it was for you guys. And from that, we realised that there was a real passion and a desire to have an exhibition in the city. And so we were able to put together an exhibition. Syra, would you like to say a little piece about Bromley House, the exhibition?
Yes, we were delighted to work with Pat and some of the residents from the Meadows who were doing some wonderful work, and we had these conversations that perhaps they needed a bigger audience and for other people to also share. with the work that they were doing. So we have contact at Bromley House, who was very keen to host the exhibition, and we had it for quite some time, didn't we? About 6 weeks, and certainly the opening event was very successful, and we had a great number of people from the community. And thank you, Pat, because it's enriched our project, and we've really enjoyed working with you, and hope to do so in the future.
Bo, I haven't come to you yet. Bo is Development Director at an organisation called Backlit, which provides studios for artists in the city, and also has Art Council funded exhibitions, and also studio exhibitions and private hire events. I put this in front of you because one of the things I really wanted Bo to share with us is her views as Development Director, and also as a curator, the work that Bo does independently from her role at the gallery, the opportunities that you provide young people in the city. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the last project you've just finished.
Well, as Ren said, I work as Development Director for Backlit, and but my kind of practice is mainly in engagement and learning, so I've been working in that area for quite a long time, over 10 years. So at the moment I'm developing programmes for Backlit, so making links with different groups to encourage them to visit Backlit, so we can start that process of developing our learning programme. But as Rhiannon said, I work independently as a learning curator, and I recently worked on a project with a collaborator of mine called Sean Stammers, who runs a community engagement organisation. So the project we did was called My Neighbourhood, where we worked with young people aged 13 to 18 in 3 different areas of Nottingham. So it was in Bulwell, Hyson Green and Slenton, that was it, Slenton as well. And encouraging young people to explore their local area, so for them to document and photograph parts of their neighbourhood that they found interesting, hidden areas, rundown areas, and to also comment about their feelings about their area and contribute that to their own blog. So it's just a way of young people, I suppose, taking ownership of their own area and looking at their environment through photography. And Kathy over there, we actually work with fantastic young people from the Greenway Centre and the Bulwell Academy and Catch-22, and the young people, you know, the work that they created is really amazing. We had a great presentation at Bulwell, and there's also a blog that I can pass on to people if they're interested, where, you know, you can see this amazing slideshow of images of how, you know, young people have really kind of engaged with and looked at their own area, made, you know, some really quite poignant comments about Bulwell. For example, one of the young girls said, you know, people think of it as a rough area, but you can really see that how beautiful it is. And you can, and another young person said, oh, you can walk past an area every day of your life, but you don't notice the little details that are quite, you know, that are great about where I live. So that's kind of my view on sort of working with young people. It's kind of an area that I'm very passionate about. Probably because of the kind of situation that's facing a lot of young people aged kind of 13 upwards at the moment. It's a quite difficult time. So that kind of level of engagement, I think, is really important and enriching for young people and adults.
Carol is desperate to respond. Come in.
I just, listening to what Bo was saying and endorsing what Wonderland has done, I just wanted to add to that, because it's so important for people to be able to use what's right in front of them, to use themselves, to be able to be confident enough to know that they are good enough to engage in creative practice. It's what all children do before they learn to write or speak, is they make marks with their pencils or crayons or fingers or whatever, and there's been a growing understanding of the importance of that over the last 30 or 40 years. Art is an interesting phenomenon because it exists at the top of a very high-level cultural sphere at which work can be highly priced and therefore has terrific political clout, but it also belongs to everybody, and therefore it's very difficult often to deal with. And if you take the scenario that I described before about we tend to put everything in boxes, then you can appreciate why something that is as broadly embracing as that actually can have problems in terms of being applied to anything. However, I think this kind of work really supports that tremendously. As an academic, I've been responsible for many years in terms of persuading people, no, if you're English you don't need to go to London, you can work down your own street and produce work of incredible calibre. You can, working with international cultures as well, shows you that everybody's the same. We all have the same. And the most important thing in projects like this, I think, and just to endorse what Bo's just said and what Wonderland's been about, is about looking for similarities and not differences. And I think that's what these projects do.
Thank you. I also want to now come over to Becky. Can you please introduce Primary and your role to everybody?
Okay. Thanks, Rhiannon. I'm really sad that this is the first Wonderland event that I've been to.
Naughty girl.
Shame on me. But it's really great to kind of be here and just hear reflections of people who have been involved. So I'm here, well, I'm here with myself, but also I'm from Primary, which is an artist-led organisation based on Ilkeston Road. So similar to Backlit, it's got studio spaces, it's got kind of public exhibition space, and we're in the early days of a public programme. So we've just launched a public programme this year, which invites people in to kind of see the process of making art with lots of different sorts of arts practitioners. But also my job, which is 2 days a week as the engagement curator, is around looking at how we make links with communities around us in that area of Bradford, Lenton, and also how we, one of the things I'm working a lot on is not only sort of how we bring people into the building, see what's happening within the building, but also how we initiate projects that happen outside in those communities and respond to the sort of knowledge and creativity that's already out there. So in a similar way to Bo's work with young people, I think it's about trying to, I've initiated a series of projects called Intersections, and the first one's just starting. And that's around commissioning artists who are very experienced in kind of working in a socially interactive way, but who have their own research interests, and taking their research and practice out to work with particular people in the community, and then having a very open-ended process so that there's not a kind of fixed outcome from that, but the dialogue that happens through their research results in some sort of creative project. So the first one of those is two artists who are working with all the hairdressers well not all of, but they're working with hairdressers and salons along Ilkeston Road, Afton Road and Radford Road, and looking at the practices within those spaces, the creativity of listening and care, and also the kind of cultural identities that coalesce around each of those different micro-salons.
Thank you. So I wondered if people are able to, if there is one near you, just have a look down. These are some of the comments and questions that we've captured at some of the other debate nights, and I just wondered if there's anything anyone would like to respond to on those, or just respond to some of the things that you've been hearing from the panellists. Aha, I knew you'd be the first.
Hi, my name's Adrian Shaw. I'm a local artist, moved up from London from Harrogate. I was involved with Harrogate Arts, but in the last few years I've been living in Nottingham. Like a lot of ex-Londoners and people from down south are finding this an amazingly creative place to be in, and with its own challenges, but also the energy here strikes me as someone who wasn't part of the Nottingham scene before. And it's amazing the talent there is in Nottingham, and I'm just picking up some of the threads. One is that I actually represent at the moment Playworks Forum. I'm giving some leaflets around to people who are interested, and the importance of play vis-a-vis play for its own sake, which is the, if you like, that's the base of any form of later creativity in the arts or sciences or whatever. And also the other thing is, I think, is a gradual awareness of the talent that lies within Nottingham and the East Midlands area generally, and how we could link up across city and indeed further afield to actually generate more interest there. We've got some wonderful things happening, especially around Station Street. It also is a link to North London, where I used to live before, and links London anyway with here. And we've got world-class gallery both here actually and in Nottingham Contemporary to generate that sort of interest. And I think this is this sort of energy that's represented in this room is really amazing and can be useful for future endeavours. And I think we should keep ahead the wider view that creativity is important, and you don't actually have to have a reason for doing something financial or otherwise, apart from in itself to generate ideas, to generate new directions, etc. Just a general comment, really. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess we've talked a lot about the city and different organisations that you all represent and what you're doing, and I think it might be nice to just share a little bit about Wonderland now and what that's done in the last 16 months. The other night I was going through the different archives of photos of workshops that have taken place with children, young adults, older persons, and looking at all of the reports that we've had to deliver to funding bodies, where, as Carol has mentioned, there is a certain amount of tick boxing that has to take place in order to get financial support. And when you start to look at the stats, if we are as crude as to refer to people who've engaged with the project in that way, then we are hitting just under 2,000 people that have engaged with Wonderland. And I was quite astounded by that. And I think that shows not necessarily anything about Wonderland. I'm not sharing that because I think we've done anything here. I'm sharing it because I think it comes back to something bigger, much, much bigger, and which is why we all do what we do, which is it's about a need that people want to interact, they want to think, play, be creative, and when you provide a space or a platform or an opportunity for people to do that, and if it's free, then people will take part. It's quite simple. And I think having opportunities for people to talk and to meet, as you're saying, Pat, it becomes more and more important to provide those spaces. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an institution, it can be a park. At one point we were going to all be on the park today. Thank goodness we weren't. Have you got anything you'd like to add, Syra?
It's just to say, that the Wonderland journey has been incredible. We've met so many interesting and generous and giving people along the way, and it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know different parts of the community, different people around the city, and we hope to continue those relationships in the future and hope that the work that we've initiated, because as Rhiannon said, this is just the beginning. There is a lot to do, and we feel very inspired and very humbled by the many, many people that we've come across around the city. There is so much talent, so much creativity, so much initiative and in Nottingham, and that should be celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder whether anybody else wants to have a response. Oh, you might.
Right in there. Thank you. I have a sort of question which you might have talked about already before I came in, so apologies if I missed something. But I'm really, it feels sort of amazing to hear all the warm feedback from people who've been involved in this project, and it's clearly had quite a big impact in some people's lives. And what Pat was saying about the sort of the power of the arts, or these kinds of projects to bring people together and create spaces where you can start to counteract some of the struggles people might be having in their lives, both in terms of isolation but also other kind of social and political issues. And I guess something that I'm personally very interested in is whether art can or should be a part of social change, what the agendas are behind funding certain projects, and whose agendas they are and who the change is for and who kind of carries the power of that stuff forward. So I suppose it's a general question for everyone. I don't really, not really sure what I'm looking for, but just reflections on how you take that kind of the positive potential of the arts, but that the people who kind of then get to use that power are the people who need to make those changes, rather than it sort of remaining in the hands of people who already have it.
I'm going to come back to you, Pat, with this one. And I think I can give a start of an example. So when we were talking to you, I think a lot of projects start with looking for opportunities for funding to be able to deliver projects. What we did was we just had a chat about what the need was, and off that initiated discussions with a venue, and Syra was able to then secure Bromley House as somewhere where an exhibition could take place. So the way Wonderland has worked is from the grassroots up, not the other way around. And I think that's been one of the reasons why we've had so many people engaged, but also friendships have formed. One of the big criticisms that people have had at the start, at the launch, oh, here we go, another social engagement project, oh yes, use us and spit us out. I literally had someone say that to me. And I hope that people haven't felt that. I'm sure there are a few, but I would like to think that we have attempted to maintain conversations with people throughout, even when their specific projects ended. There's been these kind of events available for their voice to still be influential in what happens next. Would you agree with me, Pat?
I've seen a lot of development, personal development. 2.5 years ago, there was a man who would he'd come and peer in. We're in the pavilion, a park pavilion. He'd peer through the window, and I'd go and I'd try and say hello, hello, and he'd be off, run away. It took me weeks to catch him, and eventually found he was a photographer. Didn't believe in himself, been unemployed for a long time, etc., etc. Eventually, I got some of his work out of him. Put it up. He'd come and look at it through the window. Eventually he came in, eventually he sat down. Now he'll have a cup of tea and a biscuit. And he's our community photographer. Taken us 2.5 years, but that man literally, I now know, has nothing. You know, he stammers very badly, therefore he won't interview very well, but he's found somewhere where he feels secure, and that is through his art. And he comes in 3 times a week to see us. He's the obvious example, but he's not on his own. There are other people, sadly unemployable possibly, I don't know, but they find something in the art, in the environment, in the activities that we share together. We play croquet, we play bowls, we've got a community choir, as well as exhibitions and workshops. The next one is a mosaic exhibition.
Where is it, Pat? Where is it?
It's with us. Yes, no, it's going to be with us. You can't come. So there's always something happening. That is what I think. There's always something happening, and people just want to be there. That's it. We're just a friendship group, really. But the thing about it is, it's always got something to look at. It's not too personal. We're not going to ask them anything. We're not going to fill in a form about them. They can look at the art. I mean, one of the best times we had is when we had some work by a young student, and everybody was so cross. This isn't art. And then we had this long discussions about what is art. And it went on for weeks. This isn't art. Actually, let's look at it again. So it gives you something to talk about, which isn't personal, isn't intrusive, and you don't have to fill a form in.
Can I just I'll come to you, Jay, just after Gav's responded. And please, at this point, I can see some of you nodding, some of you looking a bit frustrated. Please do also chip in.
I just wanted to continue on from quite a few of the conversations. I just drew a diagram on here, which you can't see, it's like a triangle. And at the top is the artist or the personality. So this is, and then you have the idea in this bottom corner, and then you have the funders in this corner. And I like the idea that the gap in between is that idea of what Wonderland's tried to do, is the conversation and those networks. And without that conversation between the artist and the idea and the funders, and also developing trust between those three, which is really, really important, because I'm guessing each one of those corners might come with terms and conditions and incentives and reasons for doing it. But the conversation in the middle is probably the most important thing, is to try and persuade the funders that your idea could have impact on whatever that might be. I don't know if anyone else can visualise that. Try and go for my thing.
Anyone else want to know? I was just going to say, just in response to what you were saying, that I actually think that model is the slightly wrong way around, because I think it starts with the, building relationships with the community, because as you'd said, I've worked a lot with groups who've basically said to me, they've got instantly quite angry because they've said, you're using us as a tick box, we've had the institution turn up, you're going to drop an artist in and then you're going to disappear out of the planet, and it's got really nothing to do with us. And I think that is a big issue. It isn't about people saying, well, I've got this idea, I'm going to apply for funding, and then I need to get a group. You need to be building up those relationships with those people from the start, and then bringing them in, and then it does take a lot of time. And I think some people who don't understand it have said to me, well, you're going to lots of meetings, why are you doing that? It's because they're not instantly going to be interested in you. And for me, I can see it from both sides. I can talk to a community group, and I spend a lot of time not actually talking about the institution I'm from, because it's not important to them. Or say we exhibit Turner Prize artists, it's not important to them, it's about them and building up that relationship, and then you collaborate with them, with a particular type of artist, and then you're kind of working on the same level. So that's just my sort of
that was certainly the approach we took. We never said about the institutions, the funding bodies, it was just Rhiannon and Syra.
I think what we're talking about here is ethics, and as somebody that spent hours and hours pulling bids together and trying to apply for governmental funding, I'm all too familiar with those reports and those pro formas that need to be completed, Rhiannon. And I suppose, again, this is why we looked at a different model, and I have to agree with what's being echoed here. With the business hat on, I don't have to conform to any bureaucracy, any governmental quotas, and I'm not a slave to any funding that has to be relied on. We're talking about sustainability here, and I think there's a real opportunity for us to come together and exemplify where we can sustain where governmental funding has cut off. And with our work, and I'll give you an example, at Capchina we're now looking at our next social initiative, which is Suspended Coffee. And with Suspended Coffee, it's actually an initiative that was created down south in London. Some of you may be aware of it, but it's where somebody who is able and has the financial ability and is gifted that way, can actually pay for a coffee, put it on the wall and say, this is for the next person that comes through the door. And what we're doing there is collating those suspended coffees and then having them made available, not just for that individual that happens to walk across, but also to offer that as a baseline for initiatives such as this, where you can come in, use the space that's been created by Capchina, but also be gifted with that additional funding that has actually been resourced by the community itself. It's a very small initiative, it's a very basic initiative, but it's anonymous, which is what for a lot of it is about. It is flexible, there are no strings attached, and it enables us to be absolutely creative in what we then want to do with that funding. So sustainability has got to be out of the box. I always say, I've said to Sarah and others that we've met, it's a blank canvas. And governmental funding, it's great to begin with, but it dries out, we know that. It also comes with its own constraints, we know that also. So we've got to look out of the box.
Can I just add, Cappuccino are a really excellent example of how we can work together collaboratively to get things done. For example, I was really pleased to hear that is your floor laid down by the man who then subsequently had a party in the venue, and because Cappuccino didn't have possibly so much money to pay workmen to come in, but as a way of trading expertise and skills, they managed to get things done. And I think all of us in this room have a commitment to, make things happen.
And that's ethics, because when we first visioned the building of China, I was very clear it was going to be built by people of Nottingham, it was going to be resourced by people of Nottingham. And there were certain periods of that building, that experience, where I had to go without movement and progress because we were waiting for the plasterer who lived and resided in Nottingham, although we had very many offers from outside of Nottingham. And you've got to keep those ethics. It's not easy, and I can tell you, as a business owner, but also as somebody with a full-time career, there have been challenges in that. And also, we've had chains that have come on to join our neighbourhood in the meantime. But we can evidence that, but we need to work with each other.
There's two words that came to mind when you were talking. Generosity, which is a word which I don't think is used enough or actioned enough, and relationships. And Kathy, to you.
Hello, I just really wanted to introduce myself because this is my first Wonderland event as well. I'm the chair of Show Art Week, which was mentioned earlier. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but it's basically a completely voluntarily organised event in Sherwood each year, a week of creativity in which artists, we had 120 artists this year, display work along in shops. We had 2 exhibitions, a big craft fair that had 3,000 people, and it's just a really amazing event, a recycling gala. And we're looking for a new chair because I've just got a new full-time job with the Creative Quarter, so I don't think I'm going to be able to organise Show Art Week. So if you know anyone that might be interested in that, it is about giving and giving your time and being able to volunteer and all of the things that you do and the amazing sort of just supportive atmosphere that can be created through that. So yeah, I just wanted to give Show Art Week a plug and and introduce myself because I'm hoping that as a new administrator of Creative Quarter that I get to meet lots of you and maybe come and visit where you are and things. So yes, thanks.
Thank you. So, just let me know if anyone's interested in the job and I'll pass your details on. Carol, I saw you scribbling again earlier. Do you want to say anything at this point? Or does anyone else want to? We haven't got too much longer, so any thoughts?
Yeah, I was listening to what has been said about Cappuccino and backlit and the points Gavin was making. And I suppose I wanted to say something about access and the fact that it's, to me, slightly ironic that we have to provide assistance to give people access to something that should be their right. And I suppose that that fueled a lot of thoughts in my mind, which is why I was making some notes about the way that I would like to see that developed. I think we need to change our approaches. I think the bottom-up approach is an excellent one. It's about empowerment, and for me that's what engagement does. It empowers people. I don't think it's about enlightening people about art, but it's showing how art is crucially important to everybody, from a very fundamental to a very advanced level. And I think that that to me is what often is missing. We tend to come into the arts from our own personal preferences and points of view, but we need to establish the arts as a very serious aspect of human life. There are some amazing people out there that are doing some incredible work about this, about the fact that you know that it doesn't belong to everybody who goes to an art school. It doesn't belong to everybody who's been trained. We all consume it in one form or another. So I suppose I just wanted to say that anything that really supports the beginnings of those kinds of debates is very important. And I know that from that point of view, Wonderland has galvanised a lot of interest in the city, and it certainly helped me become reinvigorated, particularly through my relationship with Backlit and with other artists in the city and connections with the university. So yeah, everything that's been said has been really good, and there's lots to think about.
Yeah, and just in terms of what next, because I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, there's going to be a publication. All the vocals have been filmed and they'll be put together as a collective, and there's 8 vocal events that we've had. All of the flip charts, the comments, the questions that have taken place, the workshops, all of that will be gathered together. So in terms of Wonderland kind of finishing, but also still hopefully being a resource for other projects, and also in terms of supporting opportunities for these kind of conversations to happen. I hope that you know, business cards, numbers will be swapped in this room, because it's about everyone in this room. It's not about this project or me and Sarah, it's about you guys. So I hope that in a couple of minutes you will have another drink and we'll put some music on, and there's an opportunity for you all to have another bit of a conversation with one another. Does anyone have any final comments, or shall I leave that for the cup of tea? I'd also like to say, and I know she'll absolutely hate me for doing this, but I have to thank Claire, because Claire has worked tirelessly on all of the design and the branding and the marketing for Wonderland, and I think visually it has had a huge, huge impact and given us value because of the way you have created the design that you have. So thank you, Claire. So, Syra, shall we wrap up there?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to all the panellists today and everyone who's been with us over the last 16 months. As Gavin said, Wonderland is just beginning. We always wanted it to be a project that initiated conversations and initiated activity. So even though Wonderland as a collaboration may not exist in the future, that was always our intention, was just to get this conversation started. And I'm sure we both carry on working with communities and carry on building the relationships that we've started in the future. We look forward to, you know, just taking you along with us and hope to engage with you. And please let us know if you're doing anything that you think might be interested in the future, because we'd love to continue that dialogue that we've started. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Pat wants one final.
Nobody else is saying it, so I think I'd like to say it. I'd like to thank Rhiannon and Sarah for doing so many wonderful things. It's called Wonderland, and they helped it make a little bit more wonderful. So on your behalf, who am I to say this? On your behalf, I think we need to say thank you very much both to Rhiannon and Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's eat cake and drink tea.
Minutes left. Thank you very much. That's right. I wanted to say something about